Hello and welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. This one has been like 3 years in the making, because we planned it before the pandemic actually, and then the pandemic happened, and it's been like,
wow, has it been 3 years already?
it was before. But anyway, my friend, graduate student of clinical psychology, are you going to do your PhD?
Oh, that's a good question.
Anyway, my friend Noémie Bergeron, thanks for coming to the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first off, why clinical psychology?
Wow, you're getting right in the thick of it.
Yeah, let's just.
Wow. Okay. So how do I explain that without having to tell you my whole life story? But when I was in my undergrad, it took me many paths to land on psychology. First of all, I had a college degree in film.
What?
Yeah. So I had no idea that I would end up on this path. And I also really liked teaching. There was always something that in different profession, I wanted to be a dancer. Like there were so many things that I wanted to be. But then I went to, I did my undergrad in psychology. And as I was starting to do it and learning about psych, I just became really, really, really passionate about it. And learning was just like so easy. And
Somebody's going to hate you for saying that.
it's just because I had a lot of passion. So I
Right.
didn't mind spending the hours on readings and doing the assignments and participating in class because I just really loved the subject. And I've always also been really curious. And there's a whole like scientific method to psychology and psychology research. So then I became really interested in research, and I was really interested in the brain and brain behavior relationships. Why do humans act the way that we act, and how is that related to how the brain functions? And I had a lot of really cool research opportunities in my undergrad. And yeah, and then I decided that that's what I wanted to do.
What are some of the research you did?
So I did a couple of, directed studies with professors, but I think the most meaningful project that I did was in my last year. I was admitted to the honors program, and I really wanted to do something for Black mental health, because at that time, so it was I did my undergrad from 2019 to 2021. So there was not a lot of research that existed out there. And for me, I couldn't conceptualize how there was no research in Canada about, Black mental health. Or the research that there was really, really thin. There was not a lot. So I wanted to contribute. I wanted to do something in that. And I was really lucky that I had a really amazing supervisor who really supported that and guided me more on like the scientific side of things, but that really let me explore what I wanted to explore, and that ended up becoming a real blessing because the research kept growing and growing and growing, and it's still going on to this day. Just last fall, we submitted a manuscript to get published in a journal for that same project that I started 3 years ago when we met. yeah. So that was really cool. And
Holy shit. Well, I guess, is that, you kind of have to, it has to have a title, right? What is the title of your thing going to be?
It's a long title.
Oh, yeah. Why are they always long, though? They'll have a thing, then colon, then this thing.
I know. It's like the title, colon, the rest of the title.
Yeah.
But it's about, I can tell you what it's about. Maybe that'll be clearer. But we looked at how racial stress, as self-reported by people, affects cognitive functioning, and how time spent in Canada and racial socialization strategies come and modify that relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's, man, that's a lot, though. Because, like, So first off, you have to find the people.
Yeah.
You have to have this list of questions they have to have. They have to
Yeah.
answer and stuff, and then you use that data to map. Oh my God!
That was hard. The
Yeah.
recruitment part was really, really hard.
Yeah, right. Because where do you find Black people that are willing to talk about their mental health and how
Exactly.
it's? How did you achieve that?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, no, I completely failed at that because, well,
Oh no!
when the project started running, COVID hit,
Right.
and my project was like a neurotechnology project. So I don't know if you've ever seen like the cap that people put on their head, and there's a bunch of wires. So you need to be really close from the person to be able to do that, and so the project was kind of put on hold. And then there was a lot of administrative barriers to getting people inside of the lab. But then the whole other layer of that is the historical mistrust that exists between the Black community and any institutions, academic institutions, healthcare, and all of that. And rightfully so.
Yeah, I
Rightfully
mean,
so.
because I remember one of the things that came up during the COVID time was like how Black people were being experimented on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was really difficult, but I think I was able, once they saw my face, like I could tell the immediate like relief of like, okay, it's not like a white person that's gonna look at my brain, you know what I mean? But even with that, like we struggled to recruit people, and so what we ended up doing is we did a little bit more of the research and looking like widening the spectrum of racialized minorities, and yeah, doing some research to see, you know, how we could modify the project or how that could still fit within the scope of what we were doing. And the reality of things is that if you are racialized in Canada, you're going to experience racial stress differentially, right? Because people are different communities, and people within a given community are also different, but you will experience racial stress. And so we agreed that we would widen that scope. So it became larger than just Black mental health, and it became just like BIPOC mental health. But we still have like 16% of our sample who are Black people, which is, you know, pretty large for a research study.
I have friends that are like, yeah, frick, I'm going to go and tell someone. Wait, I think, sometimes I understand where they are coming from, because I'm going to go and pay someone, I don't know, whatever hundreds of dollars for an hour. And then I'll tell this person all my life issues and stuff. It's, wrapping my mind. Why should people go to therapy?
Well, I don't think people should or shouldn't go to therapy. It's really like a personal decision. But I will say I have gone to therapy myself, and it's been very helpful. And I think there's a huge myth around what therapy is in the first place. People think they're just going to go there and like vent and have somebody to listen to, and that's really not what this is.
No, it's not.
It's not at all. Like I always tell people who are a little antsy about going to therapy that your therapist is always going to be in your corner. They're there to help you, and they're always going to root for you and make sure that you succeed. That's like at the core. We entered this profession because we want to help, right? Not because we're sitting there and judging. Like that would not be a really good therapist. But the other thing is that going to therapy is like going to school for yourself. So there's going to be work to be done. There's going to be homework and efforts that are going to have to be put in so you can acquire the skills to be able to, after that, go out in the world and just deal with whatever is thrown your way on your own, right? You're not meant to be in therapy for the rest of your life. You're meant to go there, get the tools, and then go out.
Go and do the thing.
Yeah.
But like, I guess, should something drastic or okay, maybe not should, but what are some reasons? What are some reasons why someone should consider going to the therapist?
Well, if you get to a point that you feel like you can't cope on your own, that's a pretty good sign. But you don't always need to go to therapy for when you're in a crisis or like reactively. I mean, you can go to therapy preventively, go and get some coping tools. So then when hard things happen, you're able to cope. There's not a single event that would suggest that you should go to therapy right now.
I just did this thing go. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember we talked this about this a while back, but there's a therapist and a psychologist, and they're two different things.
Yeah. So anybody can call themselves a therapist.
What?
Yeah, I know. Like you could be an art therapist, you could be a music therapist, you could be like whatever you want.
Okay, I'm a podcast therapist.
There you go. There you go. Slap that on your bio on Instagram.
Okay, so yeah, psychologist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Psychologist is a legally protected title, so you need to go to school and complete a certain program, meet certain requirements, and then be part of the psychologist board to be able to practice psychology as a psychologist. Whereas therapists, it could be really like psychologists are therapists because we do therapy, but we do other things, right? But there's so many different mental health fields, and they all have their specific requirements and their specific titles that are like related to them, that only them can use. But anybody that does therapy, I guess, could technically call themselves a therapist. Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's like so hard to navigate when you're a client and you go there and you're trying to figure out, okay, I need some mental health support, but like there's a psychotherapist there, there's a counselor there, there's a social worker there, there's a psychologist there, like who do I pick? I just want therapy. Well, they're all therapists.
Right. But you want to go to a psychologist?
Not always. It depends really on what your concern is.
What are like criteria one should look at when they want to pick a, therapist?
There's a lot of things that go into it. Again, like it's a very personal decision, and sometimes it depends on what your insurance covers. Like your insurance policy. Unfortunately, mental health care is not part of the provincial system, which I think it should. But conversation maybe for another day. But yeah, so maybe your insurance coverage or are your specific concerns. For example, if you need like a learning assessment for school or psychoeducational assessment to see if you have a learning disorder or learning disability, only psychologists can do that. So you would have to go to a psychologist to get the full testing done and the full report. If it was like really severe mental health, maybe a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I know some really good social workers who are like clinical social workers who are also doing some really good work in that area. There's a lot of really good social workers also that are doing like trauma work. You can also go see a psychologist for this. I'm not too familiar with the counseling profession. I'm not sure what their, academic path is. I should really look into that, actually. Now that we're talking about it, it's good to have a working knowledge.
What is I don't know. I didn't even know you did film, but we'll get back to that. So film, what is the, stages or the levels? Like, so I finished my undergraduate, then what to become a psychologist?
Yeah, so in Nova Scotia, we're lucky in some way, I guess, that you can become a psychologist with a master's path. There's a lot of advantages and disadvantages to this. The master's is extremely intense. In my cohort, none of us finished in 2 years, which it is a 24-month program, but none of us were able to finish in 2 years.
Why not?
There's too many things to learn. Because, you have all of your... So the way that a master's or graduate program is usually structured is that you either have like a course-based master's where you do courses like you did in your undergrad, but at an advanced level and do projects, and maybe you're going to write like a literature review or something. And then you have programs that are thesis-based programs where you're going to take some courses, but you're mostly being trained as a researcher, a scientist. So you will do a lot of research project and do a thesis project. And then you have clinical psychology, which is both. So we both have courses, professional courses. We're trained to become a psychologist, and also we're also trained as researchers and have a thesis to complete, but we have the same time to do that. We have 2 years.
Flip. Okay.
Yeah, so it's really intense. It's really difficult, and there's a discussion about moving the entry level requirement to a doctorate to give us as students more time to be trained and feel more prepared to enter the field.
So the PhD thing is still going to happen after all?
I don't know. But you could, in psychology, you can go the PsyD route, which is a doctorate of psychology, which is a professional doctorate. So it's not as long as a PhD because the research is not as extensive. Like you don't do as much research. And a PhD route, which is a doctorate of philosophy in psychology, that is really long. But they're really good researchers. Like they're trained really extensively in research and in clinical practice, right?
That's too much books for my brain.
Yeah, you have to have a passion.
Let's talk about the film thing. Why did you decide to study film and dancing?
Yeah, I was recently diagnosed with ADHD.
Ah,
So that's why I think I had a really hard time to pick one thing because I was interested in so many things and I wanted to try everything. And I was a dancer as a kid. So I was like, oh, maybe I could be a dancer. But I was also really into theater. So I was like, okay, but maybe I could get in theater. But I was also really into like, fitness and teaching. And I just couldn't pick one. But I was a really artistic kid. Like I really loved the arts. And for me, film was like the one medium that you could combine all of the arts in it. So I was like, let me try that. And I also really liked directing. Like I had directed a couple of things in high school, like small, tiny things, but that was really interesting. So I went to college or CEGEP in Quebec in film, and I did that, and it was a good time. But then I got to university in film, and I sat in this massive auditorium at the University of Montreal. There was, I want to say it was like 300 kids in that auditorium, in that history of film class. I was just looking around, and the film industry in Quebec is extremely small. And everybody's fighting for funding.
right.
I think that's the case for all arts, but like it's amplified in Quebec because it's so small. And I was just looking around. I'm like, you mean that all of these people in my competition? I was looking at my friends that I went to CEGEP with, that we went to university together, and I just didn't have the same passion for films that they did. I was like, you know what? This is really not worth it.
Right.
This is not what I want to do. So I dropped out and I never looked back.
Well, I mean, you found this thing that you love now. So, what's left for you to do?
Yeah, so I'm almost done my master's. I just have to defend it. So that's
Notice I'm involved.
Yeah. So you write this.
What do you mean defend it?
I know. I know. Okay, let me tell you. So you do this huge research project that takes like a year and a half, right? Then you write this huge paper, like mine is at like 150 pages at this point. And then you send that paper to a bunch of other people, academics who are experts. They read it, and then you go and you present it in front of them, and then they grill you with questions for an hour and a half to make sure that
On your 150 pages?
Yeah. Well, on the
everything,
subject. Yeah, to make sure that you're an expert in the subject that you wrote about. And then if you answer all of these questions, successfully based on your research and your working knowledge of the literature, then you pass.
So they now have to understand everything you write.
They don't have to understand everything.
How are they going to rate me if they don't know what I'm talking about then?
Yeah, it depends because you have many people on your defense committee.
Right.
So
Each person has I'm going to take the first 10 pages. You take the first 20 pages.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they do,
but they have different areas of expertise, so they will ask questions.
You are the brain person and you are the...
Yes.
Gotcha.
You got it. So they would ask questions about the brain, and maybe somebody is going to ask questions about the statistics or the analysis.
But then... And they all unanimously have to decide that you pass or fail.
Yeah.
4 people, do you say?
I think I have 4 people on my committee, yes.
Oh my God. So it has to be, so it's like a presentation. I hate presentations.
You do?
Oh my God.
But look at you. That's what you're doing.
I'm like, this is my little sanctuary. I built this thing, but when you put me outside, I'm like, oh God, I have to do this. Okay, so, but again, you have done all the work on this thing. So once it's done, then what? And then you passed, Noémie, then what?
Yeah, then I graduate, or I get like I actually don't know how it's called, but they essentially put on my file that I've met all the requirements for graduation for this program. And then I can go and apply to the Nova Scotia Board of Examiners in Psychology to become registered with them. And then once I'm registered with them, I can start practicing.
Oh, but then I just found it out the other day because, there are not many black uh,
Nope.
psychologists. So anyway, this lady person was like, even when you're done, you kind of have to be like, I don't want to say chaperoned, but in a way. Yeah, so that you have to go and like kind of walk under someone and stuff, and they have to like check, oh, you did the right thing, or oh my god,
yeah, it's called supervision.
Yeah.
So I have to be supervised, but I'm really lucky with who I have as a supervisor. Really, really, really lucky and blessed. And
so
if
you
you're
even
watching
have
this, thank you.
So you even have the thing kind of ready before you.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to go. Yeah, I have a supervisor, and they check on you, but it's really for you to continue learning and growing as you enter practice. And for me, it feels really reassuring to have somebody that's gonna still kind of hold my hand.
Do you have to have like, I guess, I only deal with trauma, I only deal with,
Yeah, so you have to declare what they call an area of competence.
What is yours gonna be?
So I'm pretty much a generalist at this moment. So I will do like the basic stuff like depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder. I also do assessments, so learning assessments, psychoeducational assessments, ADHD assessments. Yeah.
What made you decide to do this? You don't have to talk about it, but like, is it a long process to decide, this person might be ADHD or?
Yeah, it's pretty long. Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot that goes into it. Interviews, and then you get collateral information, I love to have access to like school records to see how the person was functioning in school or is functioning in school, because I do ADHD assessments across a lifespan, so children and adults, adolescents.
Okay, wait. So let's say I'm like, oh man, my brain is always ding, and then I want to do it. What do I have to do? Do I have to go and get all my results from school and stuff like that, or?
Well, depends how the person you're working with is working. I like when the person has access to their school records, I like to have them, but it happens that they don't have them, especially if they're adults like in their 30s, 40s, maybe they don't have access to high school or elementary school report cards anymore. But you would get information from how they function at work, from how they function at home. You would ask other people in their lives, like a work supervisor or a spouse, to fill out questionnaires for you. They would fill questionnaire for you. And then there's a whole like testing phase also where they come in person and we do a couple of tests together, like that tap like cognitive functions that are associated with ADHD, so I can get a good understanding of how the person's brain might work. And then after that, it's a lot of like putting all of these puzzle pieces together to make an interpretation.
They don't put the thing on their head too?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
So then if that's yes, you have it, what happens?
Yeah, so after everything is done, I meet with the person again, and then we go over all of the results of everything we've done together. And if there's a diagnosis to make, I make the diagnosis. If there's no diagnosis, I don't make a diagnosis.
If there is, what options?
So
you just start taking medicine, or?
No, I'm not. So psychologists are not medical practitioners.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're not allowed.
Oh man, there's so many layers to this thing.
I know. That's what I mean. Like, it's really complex and people don't always know. But psychologists are not allowed to prescribe medication. What we would do is like make a section of recommendations, and then if there was an interest for the person to maybe pursue medication, the recommendation I would make is just have a conversation with your medical practitioner. That's it. Like, that's the extent of what I'm going to say, because I can't, suggest or recommend medication. That is not I have to stay in my lane, essentially.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, you said you found this thing you love about it, but you love helping people. Is that the only reason why you're doing it?
I think I'm somebody who's really curious, and this is a profession that allows me to cultivate that, because you're never done learning. You're always learning.
You're not done.
No,
you're
never
like,
done.
oh, I know everything, I'm good, bye-bye.
No. That is absolutely not it.
You still have to do all the books and, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So is that why most of those people always write books and stuff? Like
You mean psychologists?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't. In my own circle, I don't know anybody who's written a book.
Not like Research,
Oh,
sorry.
research.
I call them books. I mean, it's 150 pages.
Might as well be a book, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it depends on the interest of the person.
Oh.
I'm going to keep a foot in research because I love research. And then I have another person in my cohort that I know will keep a foot in research. But the other three have no interest in pursuing
I'm done.
research.
Goodbye.
I know, yeah. Yeah. But it's important to have that understanding because we work under a scientist practitioner model. We have to be good consumers of research. We have to understand scientific research really well.
Right.
Especially
because just because it was right yesterday doesn't mean it's going to be right today.
exactly. And psychologists are legally allowed to make diagnoses. So it's important that we're always up to date with, the new research that comes out and that our practice is always informed by evidence. And, to have a really good understanding of statistics and prevalence and incidence rate. So we have all of this kind of background knowledge when we go and make a diagnosis for somebody, right? The stakes are really high.
Yeah. No, talking of stakes being high, there's this, I guess I read and watch too many, but this is a film, but it's based on like real life.
Okay, which one is it?
I can't remember, but anyway, so this I guess is a psychologist was researching psychopaths, and apparently you're just born that way. It's like thing in your brain. So
Yeah.
like there's a part of your brain, the front one is supposed to make you like, no, don't do that, and the back one is supposed to be like, do that. And then in a normal person, they kind of balance each other out. But like with the psychopaths, they don't. It's like, fuck, I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, how do they even find this thing out?
Yeah. Lots of research.
God damn it.
Yeah. Psychopathy is not my area of expertise, so I can't.
Oh, that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know nothing about psychopathy. Like,
oh my God. Oh, I just think you guys that read so much books, you have all the knowledge. Oh, yeah. I know this thing.
So the thing I'll tell you a little secret about academics is we're really, really knowledgeable in one tiny area.
Right.
As soon as you breach out of that, you're like,
I don't know anything. Okay. Yeah, no, but it was a interesting thing. So, okay, that's not your field now.
Yeah.
So being, Black and finding out, I guess, this huge gap between you finding out that, wait, there's even no research on how did you navigate it? And like, does being a Black woman in your field, like, is that a positive or negative? Like, are there struggles you have to face being a Black woman in what you're doing?
I want to say that there's a lot more research now that is out. There's a lot of Canadian research that's out now compared to 3 years ago. Just in the span of 3 years, there's a lot that's been produced. And for the challenges, yes, there are definitely challenges. The field, obviously, is extremely white. Like, there's a handful of Black psychologists and even Black mental health care practitioners. There's only a handful of us. So it can be very isolating. And when you are somebody that speaks out and challenges status quo, it can be very exhausting. It can be worrisome at times too, because you're worried that you might disrupt something and then lose your job or lose your credibility, or but then on the other side of things, I think, for the most part, like the psychologists that I've met as colleagues have been very open-minded and are very, supportive to change being done mostly. So I do feel like there's that, still that welcoming and that support at the kind of like practicing entry level. But as soon as you're like, yeah, but this foundational knowledge that this therapy is based on doesn't work for Black people, we should scratch everything and rebuild. They're like, oh, well, but there's like 30 years of research that supports this. And this new modality, like, it's not well researched, not well evidenced. And I'm like, yeah, it's not well evidenced because there's not Black scholars that are researching it, or because this research is not being amplified, So it's a very fine balancing act I find. But I'm hoping that by being in this profession and by speaking out and continuing research and creating that new knowledge base with other amazing Black academics, that things are going to change. That's like the optimistic
I mean, look
part
at
of
it.
me.
3 years ago, there wasn't much,
That's
but
what I
now,
mean.
so
Exactly.
you're doing okay.
Exactly.
I'm gonna let you go with this question. You know,
Okay.
you do all these things, and most of the things is taking care of people, and most of the time, how are you taking care of yourself?
I'm a big outdoors person, so I do a lot of
Ah.
hiking. I love being, by the water. So like all these coastal hikes are really great for me. I have a dog, so zoo therapy, I guess, in a way. I'm really well connected with my family and my friends, so I have a good support network. And I also that receiving my ADHD diagnosis has been really life-changing. Feels like my life has done a 180, and I was suddenly able to understand my brain and understand how it's functioning and receiving the support that I needed. Like it's night and day with how I function. So that's definitely been helpful as well. And yeah, just being immersed in the community, connecting with people like you, that's really what makes me
Wow.
vibrate. Yeah.
Okay, that I lied actually. That wasn't my last one. So this is a real last one though. I love your social media. How do
Thank
you
you.
how do you decide which of those videos you reply to? Because some of them you reply to, but then you also make yours. How do you decide which of those videos you reply to and which one you're going to share on your social media?
Yeah, I think it's what I'm interested in, what I have something to say about, what I want to research, because I always, you know, do some research before I make a video, because I want to make sure that it's well informed. I don't spread misinformation. But also when people have really good questions that I think that other people could benefit from, I like to reply to those. And for which ones I post, it depends. So I have both a TikTok and an Instagram, but Instagram doesn't allow any videos past a minute and a half. So
Oh.
any videos above a minute and a half doesn't make it to Instagram. That's how I choose.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Oh man, Noémie, it's always great talking to you. Thank
You
you for
too.
coming today and for sharing so much about your work.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Israel.